operation for this for a couple of years now in a row, right?
Yes, two.
And we couldn't have done it without you, so thank you, Richard.
Well, thank you.
Yes, give a round of applause.
Thank you. Even my own staff weren't clapping at that, so duly noted, you two. I had to go and get them in the rain. I had to go and get them to go in my own vehicle and to come to the hotel and pick them up so they wouldn't get wet. But I'm like, it's not how it's supposed to work. But no, it was good. Before I introduce, obviously, our next speaker, I want to take you back to 2015, and we had a visit, the then Secretary and myself, from 3 individuals who lived at the local CCRC. And 2 of the individuals were in their early 80s, and both of them had lost their spouses to dementia, one to Alzheimer's, the other to Lewy body. And the other gentleman was a retired dentist who was 55 and was living with early onset Alzheimer's, and Dr. Sandy Halprin. And they came to meet with us, and they sat down and said that really that more could and more should be done with regards to sort of making Florida more dementia aware, more dementia caring, and basically the needs and aspirations of the many people living with dementia and their loved ones and their caregivers were not being met, which kind of took us back a bit because we had about $20 million that were appropriated for respite, and we have about 14 or 15 memory disorder clinics throughout the state, so we thought we were doing pretty well. And they let it be known to us that it wasn't, and we needed, as a state youth and aging, we needed to actually get our act together. So me and the secretary at the time, we put our heads together and we said, what are we going to do? And as a result, we announced the Dementia Care and Curing Initiative in Florida, and the idea was to introduce objectives to really make the communities more dementia aware, more dementia caring, and reduce the stigma associated with those people living with the disease so they could actually live and live well. And I remember when we announced it, I got a call from one of our area aids and aging directors, and she was 85 years old. She passed away a couple of weeks ago, but she passed away on her terms. She was still in charge, and she died in her sleep. So that's the way she wanted to go, and she dictated it, and obviously that's the way it happened. So we miss her, but she was a force to be reckoned with. She called me and she goes, Richard, I love you to death, but we've been doing this for 30 years. So don't bother coming down here and giving us some newfangled way of taking care of people with dementia, because, again, we've been doing it longer than you've been around. I said, well, Edith, I understand that. I said, but can you tell me right now that everybody that is in your community that is living with dementia and they interact in the community, it's the most positive experience that they can have? And she goes, well, no. I said, well, that means we have work to do. I said, you may be more advanced than other communities in actually delivering appropriate care and training to individuals living with dementia and the community at large about how to interact with individuals living with dementia, but you've still got work to do. So I said, that's what we're talking about. And I said, and please understand, the state is not going to be dictating how communities become dementia aware, because communities know what's important to their communities and they know what needs to be done. So we've organized about 10, 11 task forces throughout Florida who are comprised of individuals from, I think, the healthcare sector. We've got local officials. We've got caregivers. We've actually, in a couple of situations, got a couple of people living with dementia. Brian LeBlanc, who you'll hear from next, he actually helped participate in the one in Pensacola. And so, it's important to have every aspect of the community participating in these task forces to enable their community to become dementia caring, dementia aware on their terms. And we've actually, we're real happy with the way it's going now. And I think now we've been talking about actually coming up with some outcomes and objectives and goals, because how do you know you've been successful unless you know where you come from? And we're feeling good about what we're doing, but now we have to bring some structure and to sort of say, we can show success now. Back in the day, we thought a low-hanging fruit would be like, hey, we'll just reduce the number of bake racks. That's a good way to measure that. But as we know now, it's not as simple as that. And so we're actually challenged our strategic planning folks to look at better ways of measuring the success of making our communities more dementia caring and more dementia aware. And I think the philosophy is, and I've got some notes here that I was making, You may have to live with dementia, but you should still be able to live well with dementia. I think that's the focus of all those task forces, is to encourage that to happen. And we know that one aspect of living well, obviously, is socializing and eating with friends and family in the community. That can be difficult for someone living with dementia, because it becomes so much easier. That socialization occurs in a place like Hen House Cafe, that you're going to hear from in a minute. Staff there are trained, they're more like are made aware of the unique issues faced by people living with dementia. And they're dedicated to ensure that whoever goes there has a great experience, that they get to live and live well. Probably more like eat than eat well. We had a restaurant in Tallahassee that just became certified to be dementia caring, dementia aware. And Anne Avery over there and I had the opportunity to watch the training actually occur. And as you can imagine, the wait staff are all millennials, and their cell phones are attached to their hip, and they're not going to let go of them. But through that whole training, they did not refer or look at their phones once. Because they were able to personally relate. Oh, I have a grandmother that's living with dementia. Oh, I had my father or my uncle or someone. And they actually sort of paid attention. And more importantly, I think you said, the training was provided by a millennial. So they were more inclined to listen to someone, from their own class than someone sort of lecturing, from my age type of thing. They're like, oh, here we go again. So it was really interesting. They actually paid attention and were really involved in that. And as a result, we were able to actually award them a dementia caring designation. And I think 2 weeks later, they had a support group go there, and it was a wing restaurant, and they were able to attend there and really interact well. It was all over Facebook and stuff like that. It was great.
All over Facebook. So now that restaurant has put some real skin in the game, because they want to show, hey, we care about everybody that's in Tallahassee, all ages and everybody, and this is a comfortable place to be in. That's that kind of public-private partnership that has really made these task forces just take off.
And so, now it comes to talking about Hen House Cafe, and they obviously are not in Tallahassee. They're actually in Citrus County, which is not too far away from here. And back in June of 2015, actually, they became the first business in Citrus County and the Nature Coast region of Florida to conduct staff training in dementia awareness and communication. And now they are certified as dementia friendly, the first restaurant in Florida. It's a 2-hour training, and which all serving staff participate in that. And it was conducted by a company called Coping with Dementia, LLC. And the company, they train both family and professional caregivers of individuals living with dementia. And so since that time of 3 years ago, this company has certified more than 50 businesses and churches in Citrus and adjoining counties to be dementia friendly. And in 2017, the Hen House owner, Kimberly Speckner, opened a second restaurant named The Diner, and immediately commissioned dementia friendly training for those staff. With us today, we have Melanie Grob, the manager for the Hen House. And she was among the original trainees, actually, back in 2015. And she also brings to her job additional training as a CNA as well. So, Melanie, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Like you said, my name is Melanie. I'm a manager at the Hen House Cafe. I've been there since 2015. I didn't start as a manager, I started as a cashier. I also I went to school in 2004 for patient care assistants, and I went from there and I went to a facility for 6 months, and then I went on to do home health. I learned a lot from my school. I learned things I never even knew. I have friends that have mothers that are passed on that were very young, probably in her 40s, that has gone from Alzheimer's. I guess years ago we didn't know these things. In my community, we're very small. It's a retirement community. We have a lot of vets. We also have a group that comes every Thursday. They're called the Roosters. Everyone's a vet. They're in their 90s. I have one that's 98. There's only so many left from World War II. And I've seen them decline pretty easily. We did recently lose 2 weeks ago one of our Alzheimer's people. His name is Clyde. And I have watched him start from maybe his not very beginning of his disease. I don't know if that's probably the proper word I should use, but I've watched him go down to his final stages. Also some other things that, we have a lot of new staff that will also retrain for the Alzheimer's. Most of our people are probably, I'd say probably 80% of our people are 70, 75 and above. So pretty much most of them have some kind of memory loss. And as servers, a lot of times we're in a rush and we don't understand why they can't answer me. You know, earlier the ladies, and they talked about too many questions. And a lot of times we use that every day. Do you want hash brown, home fried grits, sliced tomato, tater tots, or applesauce? I'm busy, and I have to remind myself, and that helps me remind, because it has been a while since I've taken my class. I need to slow down, get on their level, and, you know, maybe not give them so many options. There's also things I've seen where I've had too many condiments on a table. Like Clyde was, every day he came in and ate a blueberry pancake. And then he had ketchup because he had 2 scrambled eggs, but he had it later on. We held it until he was done with that one pancake. And I left the ketchup on one time. I come back by the table and he's got ketchup all over his pancake. Because he's got too much stuff to try to decide, you know, and as you guys all know, we're not able to make that quick decision. Our minds are not allowing us to make that quick, which one goes with what. And then I see that with their caregivers. You know, their wives do as much as possible, but it's frustrating because they probably have went up all night. Maybe they wandered all night, you know. There's some of them that come in that I'm very loud. When I first started, I didn't realize we had a gentleman, his name was Bob, and he didn't like me. I'm very loud, and I guess they're very sensitive, you know, and then it also echoes in the restaurant, and he's like, I don't like her. I don't like her, she's loud. And then as the time went on, when I was off, he asked his wife, where's that girl I don't like? Where's that girl I don't like? And he grew to love me. You know, he says, and then he had moved on where I guess he would probably got to his final stages and they placed him in a home. But she was not able to care for him anymore. You know, he was combative, like you said, we talked about, you know, sometimes they're a little, you know, grabby or, you know, just combative, they're combative. And he said, you know, but when I get better and I go back, I'm gonna give her a hug and tell her I like her. And I never got to do that, but I know in my heart, he likes me. I could take from using this like we said it every day in our thing, we talked about their goggles, you know, the ladies talked about, because I didn't know that. Even though I went and spent all that time at patient care assistance, I never knew that they got their vision, they got tunnel vision. And we come in with hot pots of coffee from the side, you got a party of 8, the family's in town, they all want to bring dad to eat or mom to eat, and we're coming in with a hot pot of coffee. And someone says anything, and then, you know, it could be very dangerous. So taking this, you know, learning about this also helps us to maybe make a safer environment when they are out dining. You know, it's hard as caregivers. I'm sure people have went through here in this room. They've lost their loved ones, and it's hard because you feel like we don't want them to be a prisoner in their home. Just because you have memory loss or just because you have Alzheimer's doesn't mean we have to live as prisoners. You know, we need to get out in the community. You know, maybe it's way too many people in the restaurant, and it is very loud. And we are a big restaurant. We are very high volume. We are only open till 2 o'clock, but it's a breakfast and lunch, and it moves fast, and there's a lot of chaos. But I can see that in them when they're frustrated, so it kind of teaches us how to tone ourselves down some, maybe not be so aggressive, or like you said, even though we're busy, we are very like, come on, can you just order? And maybe an ordinary server that wouldn't know what to deal with, that's never even dealt with this, could be a younger one, some of us older ones, we have no patience anymore. We've been doing it for 15, 20 years. You know, we don't really want to do this anymore, but how else are we going to make money to live every day? So, you know, it teaches us that we should just knock it down a little bit. Like he said, we've been open for 6.5 years, the hen house, and it's a big part of our community. It's always been a restaurant for over 30 years. So people have always flocked there. We've watched people grow, you know, move on. A lot of our people we have lost this year. It is a slower year, but a lot of it is due to illnesses, or they're no longer able to care for themselves. We have people in facilities, 3 people in 3 weeks, and, let me see another one, the diner. The diner is our newest place. A lot of people have moved over there because it's not as loud, but we're still able to, you know, we're still understanding what they're dealing with every day. You know, their aggressiveness, they're not listening to us, they're not focusing on us, or like Clyde would come out of the bathroom, Lola would take him to the bathroom, and she'd go sit down, he'd come out, and he'd be lost. We knew that he was lost, and he didn't know where he was or where she was. So we would just direct him back to his seat, come back to him, not just be like, hey Clyde, over there's your seat. You know, it's, hey, let's go over here and find Lola's over here, you know. I think it's a great program to be offered for us. People that don't have any experience, that don't have any medical background. It's just, I think it's a great learning experience. And being here, the ladies that earlier, you guys were amazing. There's stuff I'm going to take back and even spread to our local chapter of Dementia. Some of the books I've seen. So, you know, does anybody have any questions they want to ask?
Are the people that are your customers?
Hey, no,
You get it, Mike.
I'm gonna get fired if
I don't want that to happen. So are the people who are your customers, are all of them living with dementia, or a caregiver of someone living with dementia, or is it open to the general public?
It is open, it's a public restaurant. It is open, we are just dementia friendly. It means, you know, we will understand people.
Right, do you then know when someone's walking through the door, this guy has dementia?
If they're a regular, yes.
As
Not
you get
always,
to
not
know.
always, but I've grown to learn just from people's looks. I see the stare. I've watched, there's one in our window, there's one that comes in every day, and I've watched him decline too, and I've said, I think so-and-so has, I think he's getting dementia, I think he's getting Alzheimer's, you know, a lot of times they order things. No, that's not what I ordered, you know, that's not what I ordered. I'm like, yes, you know what I mean, they have to stop, don't argue, you're not gonna win that battle, you're not gonna win that battle, don't argue.
So, how do they, on the subject of the customers, how do they react? Do they understand when they come in and they see someone who's living with dementia have an episode? Do they understand that, you know, that
Not always, because they don't know. They don't always know. They're like, boy, he's a jerk, you know, or she's just mean. And I'd say, yeah, well, I think, you know, there's certain things we can't say. I don't know how much HIPAA is a part of that, you know. So, you know, me probably isn't very good either. But I'm not also you know, I didn't sign a paper saying I wouldn't use HIPAA. But as a caregiver, I understand that as a certified.
I know when I went to lunch one time with Sandy Halpern, and you know, we had a restaurant there, and it was the rattling off of the dressings and stuff, which I always get confused at. And he was very irritated that day, and he asked the waiter to repeat it, and he did it at the same speed. And he said, you know, if I was sitting here right now and I had like a bandage on my head because I had a wound, or I had a broken arm or a broken leg, you'd be treated with more respect. You'd be actually sort of, you know, a bit more understanding. He said, I'm living with dementia. He said, I'm not a moron. He says, I'm asking you to just, you know, enunciate things a little bit more clearly. So please treat me with that respect. You know, and the waiter just sort of like was just frozen in place. And I just said, look, I said, if you can, I said, you know, I said, for my benefit too, I said, because you're speaking way too fast. And I said, you know, I said, also I'm English, so I don't understand this your redneck accent anyway. So I said, can you just at least, you know, tell me again what those choices are? And I said, because I said, I didn't get it. It's always had like one long word to me, like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And so he goes, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that and stuff. And so, you know, and then Sandy was able to relax and stuff. But he was fuming, you know, because of that. And then the other thing was, I went out another time with him, and like, well, I explained to him beforehand. I said, look, you know, he's living with dementia. I said, just talk gently, enunciate things a bit more clearly. So he came to tell me, he goes, what would he like to eat? You know? And I thought he was about to blow, well, I'm like, ooh. I said, well, you can actually ask him yourself. I
Right.
said, you know, he actually can speak English quite well. And, you know, again, I use the old joke about the American accent. I said, whatever. I said, no, you can, oh, okay. Luckily, he was in a good mood that day. But that's that sort of, you know, the uncertainty of watching, of interacting with these people, like they're fragile or whatever. And I think that introducing that human element into what you do. Like, I think it was another time, you know, Sandy was telling me that he was laughing at himself, that he was just, he'd lost his train of thought, and he was laughing about it. He said, like, he ended up chewing on his napkin. And, you know, and then he started putting his ketchup on it. And he said, you know, he realized what he was doing because people were staring at him just like this.
Right.
You know, and what do you do in a situation like that when they actually have an episode like that? You know, do you like sort of let them carry on, or do you intercede, or what do
I
you
know, and when I my instructor for when I took patient care assessments always told me, give people their respect, give people their dignity, you know, so I would go in and I would interact.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't go aggressively, because you know how that's gonna end up. You know, you're hurting me, but I'm going to probably remove some things and maybe blotch them up and say, you know, like I'm just, you know, we're gonna blotch you up, here's some more napkins, and maybe remove some stuff. So they won't, you know, or I don't know how you say it, change the thing, like you said, let's go have some coffee, you know, and I do that even with our children. When they're having a fussy time, I find them something else to do. If you change somebody's mindset, sometimes it'll help push that away, you know? And
So you give the kids more sugar? That'd be good.
yeah, I guess if you don't want your kids, you get a free puppy and.
Rich, we have a question? Yes.
Yes, sir.
I just find this very relatable as to dining experiences within our communities as well, and I think that it's very important within. We have some communities that have a white tablecloth that are serving with a white plate, and just different minor details that are so important to those living with dementia. But then also from the outside perspective, when I'm trying to create a program where we have an outing for the month, where can you take residents that you feel safe in, that it's a lot of work to take on to take 10 people, 5 maybe in a wheelchair, some are ambulatory, to go to a place out in the community. And it's so great if we could have this starting to become more popular in different areas, because you do want them to still experience life outside of just their community that they're in, if it doesn't bring distress to them when they come back. But there is an app that I had heard of, and I'm hoping that it'll keep developing. It's called Purple Table,
Yeah.
and it's more